You are standing at the edge of a life that was never yours. Look at your hands. Look at the digital glow reflecting in your eyes. Look at the way you breathe. Shallow, hurried, as if you are stealing oxygen from a world that doesn't want you to have it. You feel it, don't you? That persistent, low-frequency hum of wrongness. It is the sound of a gear that doesn't fit, grinding against a machine that doesn't care. You have spent decades following a blueprint you didn't draw, obeying laws you didn't vote for, and chasing a version of happiness that was manufactured in a boardroom long before you were born. You were told that if you followed the rules, the void would eventually close. You were told that if you checked the boxes, degree, career, relationship status, consumption, the screaming silence in your chest would finally stop. But the boxes are full, and you are emptier than ever. The terrifying truth is not that you have failed the system. The truth is that the system has succeeded in you. It has replaced your pulse with its rhythm. It has replaced your vision with its curated hallucinations. And now, as you stand in the wreckage of your own expectations, you are beginning to realize that the rules you follow were never meant to lead you to yourself. They were meant to lead you away from the only thing that matters, the raw, unmediated experience of being alive. This is the moment the glass begins to crack. This is the moment you realize that the person you call I is actually a collection of scripts written by dead men who were terrified of the dark. We are going to find out who those men were, why they lied to you, and what happens when you finally stop playing their game. The weight you carry is not yours. It is the accumulated baggage of an industrial age morality that views you as a unit of production rather than a miracle of existence. From the moment you entered the education system, you were conditioned to trade your now for a hypothetical then. You were taught that your value is something to be earned, something to be validated by external metrics. This is the root of the existential vacuum you feel. It is a profound disconnection from the self, masked by the frantic pursuit of pleasure and the desperate avoidance of pain. We live in a culture of emotional anesthesia. When the existential dread creeps in, that cold realization that life is fleeting and perhaps inherently meaningless, the system offers you a menu of distractions. It offers you the numbing glow of the screen, the temporary high of the purchase, the hollow validation of the social media metric. We are a civilization of addicts, not because we love the substances, but because we cannot endure the sobriety of our own hollowed-out lives. This is the Matrix, not as a digital simulation, but as a psychological prison. It is the invisible architecture of your beliefs. It is the voice in your head that says, I should, I must, and what will they think? This they is the most powerful entity in your life, yet it has no face. It is the collective pressure of the masses, the Das Man, that Heidegger warned us about, the anonymous one that dictates how one lives, how one speaks, and how one dies. You have become a spectator to your own life, watching yourself perform a role you never auditioned for, wondering why the applause feels like an insult. If this resonates, consider subscribing. But here is the twist. This pain you feel, this crushing sense of emptiness, is not a pathology. It is not a bug in your operating system. It is the most honest part of you. The void is not a hole to be filled. It is a signal to be heard. It is the visceral protest of your soul against the artificial constraints of a life lived in simulation. When you feel that surge of regret in the middle of the night, it is not just about the things you didn't do. It is about the person you didn't become. The system calls this depression or anxiety, and it seeks to medicate it back into compliance. But what if this discomfort is actually the beginning of your liberation? What if the collapse is not a tragedy, but a transition? You are not falling apart. You are falling through the layers of deception. You are waking up to the fact that the rules were invented to keep you predictable, because predictable things are easier to manage, to tax, and to sell to. The moment you accept that the system's version of normal is actually a form of institutionalized insanity, the rules lose their power. You begin to see that the matrix is held together by your cooperation. Your misery is the fuel that keeps the lights on in the halls of power. When you stop trying to fix your life according to the old rules, the game changes entirely. You are transitioning from a state of conditioned survival to a state of radical consciousness. To understand how we got here, we must look at the wreckage of the philosophers who saw this coming. Friedrich Nietzsche looked at the horizon of the 19th century and saw the death of God not as a theological event, but as the collapse of a universal moral foundation. He knew that without a higher authority, man would either fall into the abyss of nihilism or be forced to create his own values. The system we live in today is the result of us failing that challenge. Instead of creating our own values, we inherited a slave morality that prizes conformity and safety over greatness and truth. We have become what Nietzsche called the last man, the creature who seeks only comfort, who avoids all risk, and who blinks at the sun and asks, "What is love? What is creation? What is a star?" We have traded our fire for a lukewarm existence. Then there is Albert Camus, who stared into the absurd, the conflict between our longing for meaning and the silent, indifferent universe. He told us that Sisyphus is happy only when he realizes the rock is his, and the struggle is enough to fill a man's heart. But the system doesn't want you to be Sisyphus. It wants you to believe that if you just push the rock hard enough, it will eventually stay at the top. It sells you a solution to the absurd that involves more labor and more consumption. Soren Kierkegaard warned us that the greatest danger is losing oneself, which can pass off quite quietly as if it were nothing. Every other loss, an arm, a leg, $5, a wife, etc., is sure to be noticed. You have lost yourself to the system, and because the system provides you with a comfortable substitute, you haven't even noticed the theft. You are living a life of quiet desperation, as Thoreau put it, dressed up in the aesthetics of modern success. Imagine a grand banquet hall. The tables are laden with the most exquisite foods, golden fruits, rich meats, wine that sparkles like rubies. You have been told your entire life that your goal is to earn a seat at this table. You spend years working, straining, and compromising your integrity to get through the door. Finally, you arrive. You take your seat, you reach for a piece of fruit, but as your fingers touch it, you realize it is made of painted wax. You reach for the wine, and it is colored dust. You look around and see hundreds of other guests, all chewing on wax, all drinking dust, all nodding to each other and saying, "Isn't this delicious? Isn't this what we wanted?" This is the central metaphor of the system. It is a holographic feast. It provides the image of satisfaction without the substance of nourishment. The rules are the etiquette of this banquet. They tell you how to sit, how to hold your wax fruit, and how to never, under any circumstances, mention that you are starving. The emptiness you feel is your body's way of telling you that you cannot live on images. The system is a closed loop of desire and disappointment. It creates a hunger that only its products can temporarily appease, ensuring that you remain a perpetual customer of your own life. The matrix is the belief that the wax fruit will eventually turn into real food if you just follow the rules more perfectly. But the rules were written by the people who sold you the wax. If this resonates, consider subscribing. Beware of the counterculture that the system provides for you. There is a specific trap designed for those who start to wake up. It is the trap of hedonism and lifestyle design. When you realize the corporate ladder is a scam, the system offers you a different ladder, the ladder of freedom through consumption. It tells you to escape the 9-to-5 by becoming a digital nomad, by optimizing your dopamine, by chasing the next peak experience. But this is just the same game in a different skin. It is still a flight from the void. It is still an attempt to use the world to fill the hole in the self. High-resolution pleasure is not the same as meaning. Moving your body to a tropical beach while your mind is still governed by the system's rules of optimization and efficiency is just a prettier cage. True rebellion is not found in a change of scenery. It is found in a change of frequency. The system loves rebels who buy rebel products. It loves spiritual seekers who buy spiritual retreats. These are false solutions because they treat the symptoms while ignoring the underlying disease, the fact that you are still seeking outside of yourself for the permission to exist. Vaping, scrolling, endless traveling, and biohacking are all just sophisticated ways of saying I cannot stand to be alone with myself. Until you can sit in a room in total silence and not feel the need to escape, you are still a prisoner of the system's dopaminergic loop. The new paradigm, the reframe, is not about fixing your life. It is about ending the life you have been pretending to live. It is a shift from being for the system to being for itself. This requires a radical act of authenticity that most people find terrifying. Authenticity is not a personality trait, it is an existential stance. It is the decision to live in accordance with the truth of your own experience, regardless of the social or economic cost. It means recognizing that you are a finite being, a being toward death, as Heidegger called it. When you truly internalize the fact that you are going to die, the rules of the system suddenly look ridiculous. Why would you spend your limited time worrying about the opinions of people who are also going to die? Why would you sacrifice your integrity for a status that will be forgotten in 2 generations? The new paradigm is the path of the heavy heart. It is the willingness to feel the full weight of existence, the sorrow, the joy, the boredom, the terror, without reaching for the anesthesia. It is the realization that purpose is not something you find. It is something you project. You are the architect of your own meaning, but only if you stop using the system's bricks. Integrity means that your internal reality and your external actions are one and the same. It means saying no to the banquet of wax, even if it means sitting in the dark for a while. You might feel a resistance rising in you. You might think, this sounds great, but I have bills to pay. I have a family. I can't just drop out of society. This is the system's most effective defense mechanism, the false binary. It wants you to believe that your only choices are total submission or total destitution. This is a lie. You don't have to live in a cave to be free from the matrix. You have to live in the world, but not be of it. The resistance you feel is actually a form of grief. You are grieving the loss of the illusion. It is painful to realize that the milestones you work so hard for are hollow. It is scary to realize that the experts and leaders you looked up to are just as lost and conditioned as anyone else. Your fear is valid. It is the fear of the deep-sea diver who realizes their oxygen line has been cut. But you have lungs of your own that you've forgotten how to use. Validation doesn't come from me or from the system. It comes from the quiet, steady strength you feel when you finally stop lying to yourself. You are allowed to be afraid. You are allowed to feel overwhelmed. But you are no longer allowed to pretend that you don't know the truth. Once the curtain is pulled back, you cannot unsee the man behind the machine. Let me tell you a story about a man named Elias. Elias was the perfect product of the system. He was a high-level architect who built skyscrapers that touched the clouds. He had the house, the car, the reputation. He followed every rule, including the unwritten ones. He was successful by every metric the Matrix uses. But on his 50th birthday, while standing on the balcony of a building he designed, he felt a wave of nausea that had nothing to do with height. He looked at the city below, a grid of lights and movement, and he realized he didn't recognize a single thing. It all looked like a circuit board. He went home and looked at his wife, and he realized they had been speaking in scripts for 20 years. They were 2 actors in a play that had long since lost its plot. That night, Elias didn't sleep. He sat in his expensive leather chair and stared at the wall. He felt the void opening up, a massive black maw in the center of his living room. His first instinct was to call a doctor, to take a pill, to plan a vacation. But for the first time in his life, he didn't. He let the void sit there. He sat with it for weeks. His colleagues thought he was having a breakdown. His family thought he was depressed. But Elias was having a breakthrough. He realized that his entire life had been a construction project for a city that didn't exist. He stopped designing skyscrapers and started carving wood. He lost half his net worth, 3/4 of his friends, and all of his status. And for the first time in his 50 years, when he woke up in the morning, he didn't feel like he was stealing his own life. He had collapsed his old world to find the ground beneath it. If this resonates, consider subscribing. This process of transformation is not a glow-up. It is a decomposition. To be reborn, you must first allow the you that the system created to die. Think of a fallen tree in a forest. To the casual observer, it is a tragedy, a noble thing that has ended. But to the forest, it is a feast. The wood begins to rot, to soften, to break down. It becomes a host for fungi, for insects, for new life. The decomposition is what allows the nutrients to return to the soil so that something authentic can grow. You are currently in the stage of rot. You are breaking down. The rules were the bark that kept you rigid and protected, but they also kept you isolated from the soil. The void is the mestra, the teacher. It is the space where the system signals finally fade out and your own signal begins to emerge. Don't be afraid of the emptiness. The emptiness is simply the absence of the false. When you clear the wax fruit off the table is empty. That doesn't mean you are starving, it means you have finally made room for real food. Transformation is the act of turning your trauma into compost. The things the system did to you, the conditioning, the stifling of your creativity, the shame, these are the materials you will use to grow your new life. You are not a machine being repaired. You are an organism being liberated. So how do you actually do this? How do you stop following the rules in a world that demands compliance? The first step is the practice of habiting the void. Most of our lives are spent running from the silence. We have a device in our pockets specifically designed to ensure we never have to be alone with our thoughts for a single second. Your first practical instruction is to reclaim the silence. Sit for 20 minutes a day with nothing. No music, no phone, no book. Just the hum of the room and the chaos of your mind. Watch the scripts run. Watch the system's voice tell you that you are wasting time, that you are falling behind, that you are failing. Don't fight the voice. Just observe it as something separate from you. This is how you recognize the conditioning. The second step is to identify the architect. Look at your habits and ask, who does this benefit? Does your morning routine benefit your soul, or does it benefit your productivity for a company that would replace you in a week if you died? Does your social circle nourish your spirit, or is it a mutual support group for the maintenance of illusions? The third step is to stop the leak. The system feeds on your attention. Every time you outrage scroll, every time you compare your life to a digital lie, you are giving your life force to the matrix. Withdraw your attention. Stop caring about things that don't have a heartbeat. Start caring about the texture of the air, the weight of your own body, and the truth of your own words. This is not a call to anarchy. It is a call to sovereignty. The system will continue to exist. The rules will still be written in the law books and the social codes, but they will no longer be written on your heart. When you see who invented the rules, you realize they were just people, scared, limited, and desperate for control. They are not gods. Their laws are not the laws of physics. They are just suggestions that have been backed by the threat of social exile. But once you have embraced the void, social exile loses its sting. You cannot exile a man who has found a home in himself. You realize that your problem, the emptiness, the dissatisfaction, was never a problem. It was the check engine light of your soul. It was the only thing that could have woken you up. The system tried to fix the light, but you chose to look at the engine. And what you found was a powerful, beautiful, and wild thing that had been caged for far too long. Your liberation doesn't happen when the system changes. It happens when you realize you don't need its permission to be whole. You started this journey feeling like a victim of a machine you couldn't control. You felt like a small, insignificant part of a vast, cold simulation. But look at how far you've come. You have stared into the void and seen it blink. You have touched the wax fruit and felt the hunger for the real. You have heard the whispers of Nietzsche and Heidegger, reminding you of your own terrifying freedom. The rules you followed were were the walls of a nursery, meant to keep you safe until you were ready to walk. But you are no longer a child. You are a conscious being in a universe that is ancient, mysterious, and indifferent to your credit score. The Matrix only has as much power as you give it. The moment you decide that your internal truth is more important than your external status, the walls vanish. You are standing in the middle of a vast open field. It is dark, it is quiet, and it is entirely yours. What will you build? What will you say? Who will you become now that you are no longer a ghost in someone else's machine? If this resonates, consider subscribing. The irony of your life is that the very thing you were most afraid of, the end of the world as you knew it, was actually the beginning of your life. We spend our lives building fortresses against the truth, only to realize that the truth is the only thing that can set us free. The rules were invented to prevent you from realizing that you are the one who gives the world its meaning. The system didn't invent you. You invented the system, and then you forgot that you did it. You are the dreamer who got lost in the dream. But the sun is coming up and the dream is dissolving. Don't try to hold on to the shadows. Let them go. Let the you that you were told to be dissolve into the morning mist. You are not a cog. You are not a consumer. You are not a profile. You are the silent observer of the dance, the witness to the absurd, the architect of the new paradigm. The rules are gone. The scripts are burned. The banquet hall is empty. And finally, for the first time, you are actually here. Character count check. If you are still waiting for a sign, this is it. The system will never give you the green light to leave. It will never tell you that you have done enough. You have to decide for yourself when the game is over. You have to be the one to turn off the screen and walk out into the night. It will be cold. It will be lonely, but it will be real. And in a world of wax and dust, real is the only thing worth having. The person who woke up this morning is not the same person who is finishing this sentence. The shift has already happened. You can feel it in the way your heart beats. A little faster, a little stronger, a little more dangerous. You are no longer following. You are starting to lead. And the first person you are leading is yourself. We are coming to the end of this reflection, but it is not the end of the work. The work is what happens when you close this tab and look at your life. The work is the no you say to the next false promise. The work is the yes you say to the next moment of raw, uncomfortable truth. Do not look for a map. The map was part of the system. Look for a compass. And the compass is that feeling in your gut that tells you when you are being honest and when you are being compliant. Follow the honesty, even when it leads you into the dark, especially when it leads you into the dark, because it is only in the dark that you can see the stars that were always there, hidden by the artificial lights of the city. You are part of the vast unfolding mystery of the cosmos. Act like it, breathe like it, live like it. If this resonates, consider subscribing. The rules were a cage. The cage is open. You have been standing in an open cage for years, wondering why you couldn't fly. Now you know. The only thing keeping you inside was the belief that the rules were real, but they were just ink on paper, just electricity in a wire. They have no power over a soul that has recognized its own finitude. You are going to die. Use that fact as a weapon. Use it to cut through the bullshit of the system. Use it to prioritize the things that have weight. Use it to love with a ferocity that terrifies the lukewarm. You are free. Not because the system let you go, but because you stopped asking for its permission. The banquet is over. The lights are out. The world is waiting for you to begin. Character count, check, 40 or 42. This is the synthesis. Everything you have experienced, the pain, the void, the awakening, it all leads to this moment of radical clarity. You are the master of the reframe. You have taken the system's rules and seen them for what they are. A desperate attempt to organize the chaos of existence. You have seen the architects, and you have realized they are no more powerful than you are. You have turned the matrix into a mirror, and for the first time, you like who is looking back. You are not the product of your past. You are the creator of your future. But your future is not a destination. It is a quality of being. It is the integrity you bring to this very second. Stay in the silence. habitate the void, and never ever let them convince you that the wax fruit is real again. If this resonates, consider subscribing. You woke up when you saw who invented the rules you follow. You saw the fear in their eyes. You saw the emptiness in their hearts. And in that vision, you found your own strength. The game is not over, but you are no longer a player. You are the one who watches the game. And in that watching, you have found a peace that the system can never give and can never take away. The hum of the machine has faded. The silence is yours. The world is yours. Walk out of the banquet hall and don't look back. There is nothing there for you anymore. Everything you ever wanted was waiting for you in the dark, outside the walls, in the place where the rules don't reach. Go there. Be there. Stay there. Waking up was the easy part. The moment the veil lifted and you saw the gears of the machine, the moment you recognized the faces of the men who wrote the scripts of your life, that was a flash of lightning. It was violent, it was clarifying, and it was over in a heartbeat. But now comes the part no one warned you about, the long, cold morning after. You are standing in the wreckage of a collapsed reality, and the silence is deafening. You expected a choir of angels or a sudden surge of transcendental bliss, but instead, you found a terrifying weight. You found the responsibility of your own existence. The rules you used to follow provided a scaffolding for your soul. They told you where to go, what to value, and how to measure your progress. Without them, you feel like you are floating in deep space, disconnected from the gravity of the normal world. This is the true test of your awakening. Most people, when faced with this absolute autonomy, crawl back into the simulation. They find a new set of rules, a new guru, a new system to tell them who they are. They exchange one cage for another because the open sky is too vast to endure. But you didn't wake up to become a better prisoner. You woke up to realize that the prisoner and the prison were made of the same thought. The rules were never external. They were the patterns of your own compliance. Now we must look deeper into the architecture of the aftermath. We must examine what happens when the matrix no longer has a hold on your desires, but still surrounds your body. We are going to explore how to live as a ghost in the machine you once called home. The problem you face now is the ghost ache. It is the phantom sensation of the chains you no longer wear. Even though you know the rules are arbitrary, even though you've seen the shallow, fearful origins of social status and economic competition, your body still reacts to the old signals. You feel a surge of guilt when you aren't productive. You feel a pang of anxiety when you don't fit in with the frantic rhythm of the crowd. This is because the system is not just out there in the world, it is encoded in your nervous system. You have been biologically conditioned to seek safety in conformity. The system uses your own biology against you, turning your natural need for belonging into a leash. This creates a profound existential friction. You are living in a world that is obsessed with more, while you have realized that more is just a distraction from the fact that you are nothing in the most beautiful sense of the word. You are a void that the world tries to fill with noise. The regret of the dying is almost always rooted in this friction. The realization, too late, that they spent their lives trying to resolve a tension that was meant to be lived. They regret the shoulds they obeyed and the musts they prioritized over the simple, radical act of being present. You're feeling that regret now while you are still alive. It is a heavy gift. It is the weight of a life that is finally yours to lose. If this resonates, consider subscribing. Here is the twist that will save your sanity. The isolation you feel is not a failure of connection. It is the birth of sovereignty. The system thrives on the social glue of shared delusions. When you stop sharing those delusions, the glue dissolves and you feel alone. But this loneliness is actually the clearing of the field. It is the removal of the interference. What you perceive as a void or emptiness is actually the space required for an authentic self to emerge. In the old paradigm, you were a node in a network, constantly sending and receiving data to maintain a collective illusion. In the new paradigm, you are a standalone entity. You are no longer a receiver. You are an origin. The feeling of being crazy or out of sync is simply the sensation of your frequency no longer matching the broadcast of the masses. It is a sign of health, not pathology. The system calls it alienation to make you fear it. I call it insulation. You are being insulated from the madness of a civilization that is sprinting toward a cliff while arguing about the seating chart. The problem of your disconnection is actually the solution to your slavery. You are transitioning from being a part of the machine to being the witness of the machine. This shift in perspective is the only true freedom available to a human being. To navigate this new landscape, we must consult the architects of suspicion. Michel Foucault described the panopticon, a prison where the inmates never know if they are being watched, so they eventually become their own guards. This is the world you inhabit. You have been trained to police your own thoughts, to judge your own desires, and to punish your own deviations. The rules are the internal guards of your own panopticon. You aren't just following rules, you are maintaining the prison. Then there is Herbert Marcuse, who spoke of one-dimensional man, a creature so thoroughly integrated into the system of production and consumption that he can no longer even imagine a way of being that isn't defined by the system. You have been a one-dimensional man, living a life of repressive desublimation, where the system gives you just enough freedom and pleasure to keep you from noticing your fundamental lack of liberty. Carl Jung warned us that the world will ask you who you are, and if you don't know, the world will tell you. You have spent your life being told who you are by an entity that only wants you to be a reliable consumer and a quiet worker. The rules are the biography the system wrote for you before you were born. Breaking them is not just an act of rebellion, it is an act of historical revisionism. You are taking the pen back. You are crossing out the chapters on aspiration and security and writing a new story based on the terrifying reality of the now. Imagine you are a diver who has lived your entire life in a pressurized bell at the bottom of the ocean. You have been told that the pressure is normal, that the dim light is all the light there is, and that the air from the hose is the only air you can breathe. Your entire morality, your entire sense of self, is built around the limitations of the bell. One day, the hose snaps. The pressure changes. You realize that the bell is not your home. It is a container. You swim out into the dark water, and as you rise, your body begins to scream. This is the bends of the soul. The rules were the atmospheric pressure that kept your internal organs from exploding. Now that you are rising toward the surface, everything feels like it is falling apart. You feel the decompression sickness of the spirit. The system is the ocean, and the rules are the weights you were told to carry to keep from floating away. But as you get closer to the surface, the light starts to change. The water turns from a crushing black to a vibrant blue. You realize that the safety of the bell was actually a slow death by suffocation. The central metaphor here is the pressure of the false. You have been crushed into a shape that isn't yours by the weight of expectations you never agreed to. Waking up is the act of rising, but the rising is painful. It requires you to leave behind the only environment you've ever known. It requires you to trust that your lungs can handle a different kind of air. If this resonates, consider subscribing. You must be on guard against the secondary simulation. Once you leave the primary matrix of corporate success and social conformity, the system offers you a new age version of the same trap. It offers you the simulation of spiritual awakening. This is the world of aesthetic mindfulness, of high vibes only, of toxic positivity, and the commodification of enlightenment. It tells you that the goal of awakening is to feel good all the time, to manifest wealth, and to reach a state of permanent calm. This is just another set of rules invented by people who want to sell you something. It is a way of domesticating the wild, dark reality of the existential break. True awakening is not high vibes. It is the ability to sit in the low vibes, the dark vibes, the no vibes, and not lose your center. It is the refusal to turn your freedom into a brand. The system wants you to be a conscious consumer because you are still a consumer. it wants you to be a mindful employee because you are still an employee. The secondary simulation is a velvet-lined cage. It is a way of making your rebellion profitable for the machine. If your spirituality doesn't make you more uncomfortable with the status quo, it isn't spirituality. It's just a new flavor of anesthesia. Real freedom is messy, it is uncertain, and it often feels like a disaster. If you are looking for a vibe, you are still looking for a rule to follow. The new paradigms of the liberated are not rules. They are internal constants. The first is the paradigm of the vertical now. The system lives in the horizontal future, a flat line of nexts and thens. You have been taught to live for the next promotion, the next weekend, the next milestone. To break the rules, you must turn your attention 90 degrees. You must move vertically, deeper into the present moment, rather than horizontally toward a goal. This is the presence that the system cannot track. You cannot be marketed to if you are fully content in the next 5 seconds. The second is the paradigm of radical integrity. This means that you no longer outsource your morality to the law or to social opinion. You act from a place of internal coherence. If a rule is unjust, you ignore it. If a social expectation is a lie, you refuse to perform it. This makes you unpredictable, and the system hates what it cannot predict. The third is the paradigm of authentic suffering. The system tries to eliminate suffering through consumption, but in doing so, it eliminates the depth of the human experience. To be truly alive is to accept the price of admission, the fact that life is tragic, beautiful, and temporary. Authenticity is the decision to experience your life raw, without the filter of the system's happiness narrative. Vivir de verdade, to live for real, is not a destination. It is the refusal to participate in the slow death of the simulation. You will face the objection of practicality. Your mind will tell you, I have to survive. I have to play the game to eat. This is the system's most powerful spell. It links your physical survival to your psychological submission. But look at the people who have won the survival game. Look at the people at the top of the hierarchy. Are they free? Are they at peace? Or are they just the most well-fed prisoners in the panopticon? Validation of your struggle doesn't mean telling you that everything will be easy. It means telling you that the struggle for a real life is the only struggle that matters. Your survival is not just the survival of your body, it is the survival of your essence. What is the point of a body that lives for 80 years if the spirit inside it died at 25? The practical thing is often the most destructive thing you can do to your soul. You have to find the third way, the path that allows you to provide for your needs without selling your eyes to the machine. This requires a level of creativity and courage that the rules were designed to suppress. You are being asked to build a raft while you are already in the middle of the ocean. It is difficult, yes, but the alternative is to drown in a comfortable chair. If this resonates, consider subscribing.